This is the Awful Announcing Podcast. Here's your host, Brandon Contes.
Alrighty, welcome to episode 119 of the Awful Announcing Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Contes, and this week we were joined by Jordan Schultz. This is Jordan's second appearance on the podcast. He joined to talk about the NFL trade deadline this time and the New York Jets fire sale, trading away Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. So we spoke about that from the Jets' perspective. We spoke about it from the Dallas Cowboys' perspective. And we also spoke about the process of being an insider during the NFL trade deadline and the process of breaking news. While we were taping the podcast, Jordan was actually breaking some news with Asante Samuel Jr. So we kind of got a look up close at that process for reporting and breaking news, which was unexpected, but very cool. Jordan also talked about Pablo Torre recently questioning the term newsbreaker for insiders and whether sources should be anonymous. And he got pretty candid about those answers there, even saying sometimes the news breaking aspect of his job isn't the most fulfilling or rewarding, but that's also why he has his YouTube channel. So we talked about Jordan leaving Fox. We also talked about why is Draymond Green talking about football and why is Draymond Green calling Dak Prescott a bum. It was a fun conversation where Jordan Schultz gave us some great insight into his job. So please make sure you rate and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you also subscribe to Awful Announcing's YouTube page and enjoy this week's episode of the Awful Announcing Podcast with guest Jordan Schultz. All right, he is an NFL insider. You can catch him on the Jordan Schultz Report and Why is Draymond Green talking about football. He is a returning guest to the Awful Announcing Podcast. He is Jordan Schultz. Jordan, thanks so much for joining us on the Awful Announcing Podcast.
Oh, my pleasure.
The morning after what was one of the busiest trade deadlines in NFL history. Were you expecting the deadline to be as active as it was on Tuesday, or is that something that you can't really forecast?
I wasn't. No, I didn't think it was going to be. I think it's the busiest since 1990. No, I didn't anticipate that. I thought it would be. I think I had the over under at like 16, right around there, maybe 17, and we had 21. I didn't think it was going to be that crazy. I mean, the moves that the Sauce move was shocking in the sense that he was stunned. I think most NFL fans or all were stunned. I knew definitively that Indianapolis was all in on the top corner, but I could not figure out who it was. I knew they were talking to Alante Taylor, to the Saints, about him. There were like 3 or 4 I had identified as possible, but I did not put Sauce in that boat. I mean, they just paid the guy a record-setting extension a few months ago. It is extraordinarily rare to see a guy moved at that position, at that talent, but it's even rarer, Brandon, to have him moved right after he signs. And I think it's a clear message that this new regime is going to operate differently. They're trying to stockpile a ton of picks. And obviously, you know, the Quinnen Williams move, that's the one I thought had a real shot of happening. I went into Tuesday thinking there was a good shot that was going to get done. I knew there were at least 2 other teams involved, and one of those teams was actually still pushing to get him even when the deal was essentially announced. Like when the news got out, this team was still calling the Jets saying, "Hey, are you sure I can't do this? What about that?" And the Jets said, I think we're good. But listen, it was an unbelievable trade deadline.
And this is it is kind of unprecedented, right? Like you don't really even get these fire sales in the NFL to that extent with teams moving, we'll say, multiple cornerstone players like you might in the NBA or Major League Baseball during the season. And I think that's probably partially because there are only 17 games in the NFL. So even for teams that don't make the playoffs, like, these games are still important. Why were the Jets comfortable in sort of going against the grain here in doing something like this?
Well, they don't have right now. They don't have a path toward winning. Like if you're going to be the worst place to be in pro sports is in purgatory. Like, look where the Saints have been
Yeah.
the last several years. They've just been rudderless. The Jets don't want to be in that position. And they have a ton of young talent, particularly defensively. And I think what they said was, if we can get significant draft capital that's going to significantly change the trajectory of our franchise, as long as we obviously hit on these picks, we're going to do it. And the word got out that they were open for business. Again, I didn't anticipate the Sauce deal, but I knew that everyone else essentially could have been moved. Now, the move that they didn't make, the two they didn't make, that was most interesting to me was Jermaine Johnson, who got a ton of interest specifically from Chicago and San Francisco. I think the asking price was at 2. I just never got the sense that the Jets really wanted to move him. They view him as a legit like cornerstone on their defensive line. He is a premium pass rusher. So they didn't want to move him. The other was Breece Hall. And I had reported about an hour or so, Brendan, before the deadline that Breece Hall wanted out. And I thought there was a real chance they were going to move him because he's going to be a free agent. It's a position that usually isn't paid, especially by teams that like aren't in the playoff hunt. And it just, they didn't draft him, this regime. He's a very, very good player. He's a terrific player. And he's having a terrific year. But I just thought that was the other guy, along with Quincy Williams, Quinnen's brother, that could have been moved because he's also going to need a new deal. But ultimately, they didn't do it. So, but listen, they moved Quinnen, they moved Michael Carter, the nickel. They obviously moved Sauce. It was a wild few days for them.
Yeah, and we'll see how it plays out for Darren Muji and this new regime. But historically, with the Jets, it seems like it's more picks, more problems. Like even when they have all these picks, it doesn't necessarily pan out. What was your reaction when you found out that it was Sauce being traded? How surprised were you?
I was really surprised. I was really surprised. Well, you saw his tweet. He was like, he was shell shocked. So I mean, dude, it's like, the NFL, you just never know, and I guess that's what makes the league so enticing. But usually the NFL trade deadline, you might have one big one, whether it's like a Von Miller, Leonard Williams. There's always one that comes out of nowhere, seemingly, and that's what I thought Quinnen was. Yeah, I was like, Quinnen's going to be that move where people are like, wow. But the Jets obviously had other plans. I was very surprised. Again, I knew Indianapolis was all in on a corner. I just didn't think it was Sauce.
Did having Sauce signed to an extension change his trade value at all?
Well, it helps the Colts knowing they got a premium player at a position of need under contract for like 5 more years. That helps a lot. I think one of the problems for teams, it depends where you're at financially and where you're at record-wise and this season, for example. But one of the problems is if you get a really good player who's on an expiring deal, you not only have to give the capital, but then you have to pay the player. That's very hard to stomach. It's like not one, but 2 big obstacles. And, then you look at the Eagles, for example, with Jalen Phillips. Like the Eagles, they're always open for business. I talked about it all week. Like, that's a team to watch. They want edge. I don't think it's going to be like a Myles Garrett, but Jalen Phillips is a really good player, but he's going to be a free agent. Now, you get a player who's playing for a deal. That's always good. You want a motivated player, but they're in a much different position than a lot of these other teams that, if they're going to get a guy, they need him under contract. The Eagles, I'm sure they would love for Phillips to play great and extend him, but that's not guaranteed to happen. So the Colts having Sauce under contract for a long time, I think helped that deal go.
What do these trades do for Aaron Glenn? Is he on the hot seat at all during his first season now? Like, obviously the Jets, they've made it very clear now that they're ready to look ahead towards next season. But I mean, if this does end up going to 1-16, 2-15, Is it possible that Glenn is one and done with the Jets?
I've asked that. I've been told definitively no.
Okay.
I just think he's got the confidence of the owner. He's got the confidence of the organization. Like there's always a dichotomy between. It's always an interesting dichotomy between GM and head coach. In this case, it's first-year GM, first-year head coach, and both are first-timers. You look at, let's say, like the Raiders, for example, with Pete Carroll, who's an established head coach, who's in his 70s, and then you have Spytek, who is a first-time GM. The interesting dynamic there is that Spytek's got a 5-year deal. Pete's, I believe, is 3. Pete wants to win now. Spytek is building toward the future. They're on different wavelengths, and it's hard for that to work. And you're seeing some of the problems. The Jets have, I think, a good setup right now in the sense that you have a first-year head coach who you believe in, who played there, who's obviously understands the organization, and then you have a first-year GM who has a huge scouting background coming from Denver. And I think, you're going to give him a massive vote of confidence when it comes to the draft, clearly with the draft capital. So hypothetically, the Jets go 1-16, 2-15. No, I don't think Aaron Glenn is in any trouble. I just don't see it.
Okay. I think it's safe to say that the Jets are now putting themselves in position to draft a quarterback. I don't know how much you're scouting college players this far ahead of the draft, but which quarterbacks should Jets fans be paying attention to right now?
Yeah, I would say there's probably 2 or 3. I think the one that a lot of teams really like, who it hasn't gone swimmingly this year, but I've heard a lot of good things about, is the LSU quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. He went back to school, and I think a lot of people thought that was the best team in the country, or would be one of the best teams. Obviously, they didn't get off to a good start. They fired Brian Kelly. His numbers have been a little Jekyll and Hyde, but I think a lot of teams feel like he's really special, and that he's got the tools, physicality, the arm strength. He's got all of that. So I would watch him. The wild card going into this season was Lenora Sellers from South Carolina. I am not, Brandon, a quarterback guru by any stretch of the imagination. But you talk to teams, and they were like, if Lenora Sellers hits, he could be the best. He could be the best one in the draft. I'm not up to speed on like his season, other than the fact that I think it's been okay. I just, I need probably a couple more months with the quarterbacks. Yeah. I feel really badly for Drew Aller at Penn State, because he had some momentum last season. He came back to school, played poorly, gets hurt. That one really, that was awful to see. I think most people expect Arch Manning, regardless, to go back to school. I think that was the expectation even before this season, which hasn't been awesome. But I think he's got a tremendous amount of tools that people, regardless of the numbers, feel like could be really translatable. But I guess Nussmeier is the one that I probably heard like the most.
Yeah. From the Cowboys' perspective, did they pay too much for Quinnen Williams?
Quinnen?
Like you can understand the Colts trading first round picks because they think they're a Super Bowl contender, but the Cowboys being 3-5-1, like 3-5-1 teams don't usually trade first round picks during the season.
No, it's the irony is that usually Dallas is not like a huge buyer at the deadline. We knew they were going to be aggressive, and that they were going to try to be a buyer. Now they make the move for the Cincinnati linebacker in the morning, Logan Wilson, and I think people thought, well, that's it. You saw what Jerry said the day before.
Yeah,
he was like, we got some stuff in the mix here.
Yep.
Well, that's what he meant. I don't think they gave up too much. They gave up a future 1, a 2, and Mozzie Smith, who was a first round pick that just didn't hit. So no, Quinnen Williams is the best, or one of the 2 or 3 best every year run defenders in the league. He gives you tremendous amount of consistency. He's not one of these guys that's up and down. He's dominant. He's been a first-team All-Pro. He's, I think, a 3-time Pro Bowler. And he hasn't played meaningful football from a win-loss perspective his entire NFL career. And I can tell you that both sides, and I haven't really seen this anywhere, but both sides, Brandon, had agreed to keep it quiet, but they had agreed that it would be if a trade materialized for Quinnen, the Jets were going to try to do right by him. He wanted a fresh start. He never requested a trade, but he wanted a fresh start. And I think the Jets were going to try to do right by him as long as they got the offers, and they got a ton of those. So, no, I don't think the Dallas Cowboys gave up too much.
Last week, Jerry Jones had basically said that he was more focused on the $100 billion gas venture than he was fixing the Cowboys defense. Obviously, like we said, this isn't something the Cowboys usually do during the season. So that comment didn't sit very well with Cowboys fans. Were these deadline trades at all an attempt of damage control by Jerry?
Hold on one sec. Sorry. My fault.
All good.
You'll see why in a second. Hold on, you're gonna see why. It's not a huge story, but it's a. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry. I hate this job sometimes. Damn it! I just need to relax for a second.
I wouldn't have expected anything to be happening today. Yeah. No,
the trade deadline
going on right now.
It's nothing crazy. It's Asante Samuel's visiting Carolina,
okay.
But he hasn't played. He had a neck thing.
Yeah.
But
So is that up on Twitter right now? Did you just are you sharing that or?
Yeah, I'm putting it up. Dude, you know what's crazy? I'll tell you this story. This is actually a crazy story.
Wait, is this story good for the podcast or?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
All right,
it's fine.
Go ahead.
2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, that feels right. Because it was the last. Hold on, sorry, 1 sec. I'm gonna tell you the story. It's a good story. Just bear with me.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, Brandon, this job, it's just never ceases to amaze you.
Yeah, I figured today would have been more of the.
It is
one of the most quietest days.
Yeah. I promise you, this is not going to take very much longer.
Okay.
I'll explain what this is too, if you're interested afterwards.
Yeah, well, that's what I have questions about the process. So just
we could probably just keep going, and then if this I need to get one more kind of confirmation.
Okay. All right. So before you talk about actually this,
I can tell you the story first.
Okay.
So here's the story. Let me tell you the story. So I think it was 2 years.
All right.
ago.
Let me just set this up though.
Yeah.
So basically, we had to pause the podcast briefly because even though the trade deadline has passed, Jordan is still getting some news. So we thought this would have been probably the quietest day of the year to have you on the podcast, but here we are still. You're getting info and I'm trying to confirm it. So now go ahead and tell your.
Okay, so here's 2 years ago. I don't know if I've ever told this story. I don't know, but this could be an awful announcing first. I think it was 2 years ago. It was on Halloween. It was the last year that the deadline before it was moved back because they pushed it back a week.
Yeah.
So I think it was 2 years ago. But the deadline passes. It's Halloween, and we had a great Halloween. Our young kids, we did a ton of trick or treat. I'm a big Halloween guy. And I basically was exhausted. So I went to bed at like 11, so around there, which for me is like kind of early. I usually stay up later because the West Coast games, and I also love to watch NBA. So I'm usually up.
Yeah.
So I went to bed and I turned my phone off or on silent or whatever. I was not available, which I rarely do. I almost never. But I was like, the deadline is done. I can get some rest, have a good night's sleep. And I wake up in like the middle of the night, like 4 or 5 o'clock. And I had a ton of missed calls and text. And what they were saying was, hey, Josh McDaniels is about to get fired. This was the night he got, because they got embarrassed on a Thursday night to Detroit, I think it was. And then the deadline was the next day. And they fired him in the middle of the night, because it's probably the best time to fire a coach if you don't want coverage.
Right.
And they fired McDaniels. The Raiders did. And so I had it. I had it confirmed. And it was like a 30-minute buffer, which might as well be a full day. I mean, 30 minutes in our business is like a week. It's unheard of. And so I'm like, well, maybe it's not out yet. But the Raiders had announced it. I think I can't remember, but I couldn't believe it, Brandon. I was like, I turned my phone off the one night, and I usually would have never done that, but I was like, nothing's going to happen tonight. It is very safe. And it didn't work out too well for me.
So have you turned your phone off since then?
I have because I don't have the capacity to do the 24/7 phone thing.
Yeah.
It's not in me.
Yeah.
I think if you would talk to most people that are around, like I don't do the like constant maybe check-ins or whatever. I try to be respectful of space and what I would want. And I'm not constantly, so I take breaks from the phone. It's just how I operate. We have 2 young kids. I put the phone away. And that one was especially brutal because it wasn't like I was at an event or it was just, I wanted a good night's sleep. I was being selfish with my time or whatever, my well-being. But the ones that I'm much more accepting of are if I'm at a hockey game for my son, if I'm at a cheer event for my daughter, like I consistently will put the phone away.
Yeah.
In those situations. But in this one, I just was like, I need to have a good sleep. And I missed a monster story.
Yeah. So how much of yesterday, the trade deadline, like how much of that is you waiting for information to come your way versus being proactive about trying to know what teams are doing?
I think you've done most of your work prior to.
Okay.
You know the players that are available by and large. Obviously, I didn't know it's the Sauce thing.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate that. But you by and large have a good idea of what's coming. It's very rare that you have a Sauce where it happens super fast and you're not really prepared for it. I think usually you have a good idea. Like Quinnen was like a shock, but I felt, like I said, pretty good about it. I think you've done a lot of your work in the last week or 2 in terms of the calls and texts so that you have a pretty good feel. But no, you're still like, it's always a barrage and then it's quiet. There's like the hurry up and what's it? Hurry up and wait. Like that saying, I had this incredible experience last year where I got to be in this movie. Tron. I was in this massive movie, which was a life-altering experience for me. It was really, really cool. It was incredible. And, you get to the set and you wait like 5 hours to do like 10 minutes. But that's how and they're like, just so you know, you're going to get here at 8. You're not going to be on until like 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
But they need you here, and this is how it is. That's kind of how the deadline is, and in a way, how free agency is, especially like the second and third day, where you have 1 or 2 or 3 moves, and then it's quiet, and then it picks up again. There's oftentimes a barrage, but a lot of time it's hurry up and wait.
So do you feel pressure to be first on this stuff, or is it more just like a bonus if you're first?
I think I always put pressure on myself in terms of like how I want to be perceived and being successful and what does that mean and how but that definition of success has changed for me dramatically over the last few years. I've only been doing this like insider gig, I think, for 4 years, 4 cycles, 3 years, something like that. And I didn't really know what I didn't know at the beginning. And now I think I have a much better understanding of it and how competitive it is and the challenges. But when I started the YouTube channel in basically September, I was like, the scoops are going to come and go, but I don't want to be defined by them. And I don't want, more importantly, to define myself and my level of success by them. In other words, like the scoops are great. It validates you. It gets you on shows, gets your name out there. That's all really good. But it's not like the most fulfilling thing all the time. You have a big scoop and then it's like, and then what? What's fulfilling for me, or more fulfilling, or at least as important, I would actually say it's more important at this point, is being a conduit for the players to tell their stories and to connect with people. Because I'm a people person. That's how I was raised. I've seen it with my parents. I've seen how my dad's operated in boardrooms. I've just been around it.
Yeah.
I've been around, really successful people, celebrities my whole life. And so I've seen, I think, the way that I want to be perceived and I want to operate. And I love stories. And so the scoops are almost like, the scoops are important in the day-to-day. But in the big picture for me, the 40,000 foot view, if you will, Brandon, it's like, I want to build this channel up because it ultimately brings me closer to the players and to the game. And that's what I think matters to me the most right now.
So is there a way of doing this particular aspect of the job, the insider job? Is there a way of doing it differently from other insiders, or is there a model, that Adam Schefter and Shams and Diana Rossini, yourself and others that you sort of just follow?
Well, the model that I think Adam set, particularly in the NFL, is he really created the position. And I think to a bigger extent, or a prior extent, I should say, was Chris Mortensen, the late, great, best ever. Just the level of respect that Chris had, the way in which he operated. I didn't really know him, but hearing stories. And then I think Adam probably, learning a lot from him and them developing a friendship at ESPN for many years. But, that was a position that they really created. It didn't really exist before, and then I think the evolution of social media, in particular, Twitter and X, like that created the real-time news factor, like your real-time, newspaper, if you will. But I look at, my, there it is. Sorry, bro.
All good.
I'm gonna have to go back to that in a second, but at least you saw it go out.
Okay, yeah. So we saw that. I saw it go out. Asante Samuel Jr. meeting with the Panthers.
Yeah.
So now,
so wait. Well, when is this going to air?
Tomorrow morning.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So now with that, is that something that you got did you get a tip and then you've been trying to confirm that, or was there a portion of that? Like, were you trying to confirm that he's with the Panthers, or are you trying to confirm that he was cleared by doctors? Like, what was the process there?
So I know that he's a good player, and he's young, and and it's a position of need for a lot of teams, cornerback. He's been dealing with a real neck problem, and he had to get cleared. I think there was a lot of clearance he had to get, not only in the preseason or leading up to the season, but also like now to make sure that he's cleared, because the neck is very serious, and it's not just for his safety, but teams. You're not going to sign a player that doesn't have full clearance. I'm going to explain what this is too, Brandon. I'm sorry, dude. I know this sucks.
No, it's fine. We'll we'll keep most of this in here. We don't obviously cut out the breaks, but it's a little choppy, but it's kind of it's cool to see this happening.
I just hate messing up your schedule.
I'm fine. I'm not in a rush at the moment.
Okay. I'm gonna have to put something out. I'm just telling you this now. He's visiting he's visiting the Carolina Panthers today. The clearance thing, he's been cleared.
Okay.
So now it's who's gonna bring him in, who's gonna sign him, because he is a good player, and as long as he's cleared, which he is, then he should have he should have no problem finding a new home. So my antenna has been up on him the last few days.
Okay.
I knew it'd be after the deadline, because nobody's going to bring him in before the deadline. Let's see what happens. But then I figured it'd either be this week or next week. So I knew he was visiting Carolina, but I didn't have the clearance to put it out. So when you saw me, I was waiting to make sure that I was given the okay to put out that he was visiting. Now, I also knew he was visiting, and I know he's visiting 2 other teams. But that is another. I also need clearance to put that out. Because that's a separate report. The same player, but it's a totally different report. So I need to make sure that that's okay.
Yeah.
And so what you've been seeing me do now is acquiring the information, and then more importantly, getting the sign off that is this good to go. And I'll tell you, Brandon, I will miss scoops, because I think I'm too nice with some of the stuff.
Yeah.
There have been times when an agent or a team will tell me, you could have just gone on that you didn't need to double check it. But I am, that's how I live. That's how I operate, for better or worse. And so, I just, that, and that's why I said earlier, I don't push.
Right. Almost a little cautious.
I'm a little, I don't even know if cautious, but I'm just I think what happened was, when I was a kid, and we've already had the conversation with my dad.
Yeah.
And how I've been shaped by that, and whatever, it is who it is. It is what it is. I grew up very privileged. I am very privileged. I've been ashamed of that a lot of my life. It's not something that is lost on me ever. But I also saw how my dad handled media, both as the owner of the Sonics and as the CEO and founder of Starbucks. I always was very aware of how he handled the media and how they handled him, and the relationships he had that were really good and the ones that weren't very good. And I would always ask, hey, why do you like him? Why is she great? Why is he not good? Why don't you talk to that person? Why did you give him that access? and I was always about relationships. And so I am just very aware of how I'm being perceived. And also the perception, the reality of my upbringing.
Sure.
And for a long time being ashamed of it, and now I don't know if trying to embrace it's the right word, but definitely being proud of it. I mean, I think I told you one of the big reasons I moved to New York was so that I could get out of like the shadow of Seattle.
Yeah.
But I also considered changing my last name because I was embarrassed by it. And honestly, that's just not a healthy place to be. I've spent a lot of time thinking about why that is and what that was about for me. And I've done therapy for it, which for a long time I was embarrassed to say. But why would I need to do therapy for that? Because obviously there was something in me that felt ashamed of it because I didn't accomplish all these great things. And I realized I'm never going to, it took me until the last, like, let's say year and a half to really understand that I'm never going to be as successful as my parents and as my dad. I'm never going to make as much money. I'm never going to achieve that. It's like a one of one.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't know if I'm okay with it, but I've definitely accepted it.
So and then what about just the fact that I'm sure you're also then, so here you are like trying to get out of that shadow and like coming to grips with the fact that you'll never be as successful as them. And then I feel like the successes that you do have, you probably have people accusing you of almost being given handouts because of who your parents are.
Yeah.
So there's that balance as well.
Yeah, I'll get into that.
Oh, there you go. I see Packers Vikings.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were saying so you saw I put the other two teams out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that. And that was the second part of the text that you saw. But you said I'm sorry, that was rude of me. You said because of the success, people would say, "Oh,
right." So you have now came to grips with the fact that you'll never be as successful as your parents, but then now also the successes that you do have, I'm sure you hear from people on social media, and you get the accusation that whatever you do achieve is almost was given to you or handed to you.
The silver spoon, and it was a gold spoon. I wasn't given a silver spoon. I was given a gold spoon. I made the joke. We were planning Thanksgiving with my parents who were going to come to us for this Thanksgiving. My mom and dad, and spend this Thanksgiving with my wife and I and our two kids. And we were just talking about the logistics of it, and I said we were joking about like football, and somehow it came up that like I still feeling really blessed, this time of year. You feel good about your family and really appreciative. And I said something like, I feel really blessed. And that's when I joked. I said it was a gold spoon. I was telling my dad it wasn't a silver spoon. And then he said, well, it was kind of a platinum spoon. I feel like I was born on home plate.
Yeah.
Someone said, you hear like he was born on first base. No, I took a lap around and I was born on home plate. And I'm just very aware of it. Like and that's what finding the balance of like not being ashamed of it, but being grateful and appreciative of it.
Yep.
But I would love for everyone to say, yeah, he did it. He did it himself and he did it the right way. But I've had incredible advantages. Culturally, sophistication wise, being exposed to it, education, just everything, travel. And there is a part of me that I think is always going to feel guilty about it. But I think the reason I feel better about it now is seeing my kids who are just turned 11 and 8.5. Making sure that they don't feel the same guilt that I had. and then seeing some of their struggles with it, especially our 11-year-old who's very, I think, starting to become aware of what it means to be a Schultz, if you will.
Yeah.
Being asked like, hey, do you get free Starbucks? Because those are all the questions I had as a kid.
Yeah.
Can I get free tickets to the Sonic game? Can I get Gary Payton's autograph? I mean, it's like, as a kid, I think you when you first start to become aware of it, it's like, wow, this is different. And as you get older, you get more and more aware of it. So I would like for everyone to say, yeah, but I'm very I've accepted the fact that, especially on social media, like it's not going to be that way. And I think the last year and a half, it's been a lot easier for me to digest.
Just as I'm sitting here watching you work, I was reminded. I don't know if you saw Pablo Torre. He recently questioned the term newsbreaker.
I did. Yeah.
He basically he questioned two things. First, whether sports insiders are actually breaking news, or are they just being fed information by an agent or team. Right. So obviously you're an insider. You have your own process that we've kind of talked about. So how would you respond to Pablo with that?
Well, Pablo is a true journalist.
Yeah.
In every sense of the word. He is, what he's done and the career he's built is exceptional. I had a chance to, I don't know Pablo well, but I've always really respected him, ran into him. I was doing some Fanatics Fest hosting, ran into him there and spent a few minutes with him. Incredibly impressed with what he's built and how he's done it. And I think, so what he said, just so I'm clear, he said newsbreakers are, what was the quote? Because I know exactly what you're referring to, but I just want to make sure I understand exactly what he said. They're not really journalists, or they're PR. Is that something?
Yeah, I think it was about where, let me pull up the exact quote, where the information is coming from. So like, are you breaking news, or are you just kind of sharing something that was given to you? Here, I have the actual quote is, I think on some level, the word newsbreaker is a vocabulary word we've just got to change. Like, is this actually news? Are you actually breaking it? Are you being fed this by an agent or by a league source?
Right. And he said, like, sometimes is league source really necessary?
Yes.
This
isn't so then the second
Woodward situation.
Then the second part of it is if you're going to use an anonymous source, that's cool. So do I. I do think it's worth sort of wondering why do you need to use this? So whether or not insiders need to use anonymous sources.
I think the reason we use sources is because the people who are providing that information, whether it's an agent, a GM, whomever, they don't want pushback.
Yeah.
And in order to continue that relationship, you have to protect that person who's willing to tell you the information.
Yeah.
And that's definitely not lost on me. I do wonder.
And I'm sure if you were to say, well, I'm gonna reveal who the source is, then they're
not gonna tell you anything anymore.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And someone else is gonna be like, well, I won't tell you. I won't tell who you are. Use me.
Right.
Yeah, of course. But I've also dude, I've thought about this, and this whole insider. I've thought about myself, this whole insider term. I've never really identified with the term insider. I've always thought of myself more as an outsider who happens to swim in the insider waters. But I don't know, man. I think there's some legitimacy to what he's saying in terms of if you're a newsbreaker and what the news you're delivering, does it always have to be sourced? And the reason I say that is because I've actually had these conversations with more so teams and agents, but I've had these conversations of what would happen. And this is what people well enough to have the conversation with. But what would happen if I randomly said, hey, player X is signing with team Y. Team Y tells me. And a couple of times I've been hit with it's probably not a big deal, but just so the owner doesn't hear it, or a player or the agent or whatever, let's just keep it copacetic. Let's keep it like this. But I thought about it, and I think both can be true. Like, you can be a newsbreaker, but you're also just funneling the news from another source, or from a team who happens to be a source, if that makes sense, or an agent. And that's why I love when you get the opportunity to interview players, because then it doesn't have to be sourced. You're really telling a story, and you're becoming like a conduit, a bridge to the fans. That's very rewarding for me.
Yeah, so like you had mentioned that just the scoops and sharing this transactional news isn't always fulfilling or rewarding. Obviously that's part of why you have your YouTube channel to do other things. Are you interested in breaking other types of stories? Like
like the Pablo, Kawhi Leonard thing?
Yeah.
I don't think I have. I don't think that's in me. I would say, what else would be an example of that? Like, other than Ballmer and like the Chauncey Billups poker ring?
Yeah. Is that type of journalism appealing to you? From the standpoint of like not just like consuming the journalism, but reporting,
like actually entering that world, of like the Bob Woodward's type of really, I think it's appealing to me, but I don't know if I have the drive to do it. I feel like I've always wondered, like, am I a journalist? And I'm definitely not a traditional journalist. I think I've made that very clear. When I say, like, I'm more of an outsider, I think the insider game, I always wonder, like, are you really a journalist? You're not. I don't know. I think, Pablo is a true journalist.
Yeah.
I don't think I have the appetite for it. It's more interesting to me, and I consume it like a fiend. Like, I love that content, but I wouldn't even know where to start when it comes to diving into those waters.
Yeah. Does it help an insider to be backed by a larger media company? Like, is your job now harder that you're no longer with Fox?
I think being at a Fox is incredibly rewarding and enticing because of the validity you have from being, like, benchmarked as part of a big organization, especially one like Fox, which is an NFL partner. I think does it make me get more scoops or less scoops? No, it doesn't. I haven't had no impact.
Yeah.
I just think, like, from an ego standpoint, I had to be very adaptive, Brandon, to the idea that, hey, I'm going from being in LA on set on the Fox lot, big sets, with Cowherd every week, to, like, in my home studio or in New York City in a studio that we put together, where like that's the difference. It's not the scoops. I think if you've got it, you've got it. If you don't have it, you don't have it. But it's more of like the ego hit that it took, or that I was affected with the first, like, couple months. Not now, but more so like in July, August, as we were putting this thing together. I was like, man, it's going to be a lot different. Like, I kept thinking about that. And the first couple shows, it was on my mind a lot. But I think now I've become much more used to it, and I'm okay with it.
Why did you?
And I'm excited about it because you do have more freedom. The travel was killing me. The travel was really hard for me basically every week I was going back and forth, New York to LA. I'd fly on a Wednesday afternoon flight, usually out of Newark, land 6-7 o'clock in LA, quick dinner, go to bed, TV Thursday, TV Friday, come back on the red eye and try to catch my son's, like, 8 a.m. Saturday morning hockey game. It wasn't just the travel, but I just didn't like being away from my family. It wasn't for me.
So is that now a bonus of no longer being with Fox, or was that the driving factor in you leaving Fox.
No, it's a big bonus. The driving factor was, I think it was twofold. It was, yes, I don't want to be away, but it was more of like, and I don't want to miss moments. I don't want to. I realize how fleeting my time. I am, by all intents and purposes, the most involved dad in definitely one of them in New York City. I don't miss anything. I am always there. I'm up in the morning. I get them to school. I try to pick them up. I am very much in it. And so, unless it's like the trade deadline,
Sure.
Not exactly. But I still get them out the door. But no, I think that was a part of it. But it was more so just like my identity as a dad, as a person, was more suited to be the independent route. It's more, in many ways, it's kind of like, if you look at my dad, the entrepreneurial route he took, he built a massive Fortune 500, ubiquitous global company, but at his core, he's an entrepreneur, and he wanted to build from the ground up. And I would love to build my own version of that. Again, nowhere in the stratosphere of that level of success, but the idea of building my own entity was very appetizing to me after working for a number of companies, most notably Fox, probably.
Yeah. So part of now your YouTube channel is, why is Draymond Green talking about football? I got to be honest.
It's a valid question.
Right. It is a valid question. It's a cool concept, but I was surprised to see Draymond pick that back up for a second season, just because he has his own podcast.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's still
Report. Right. He has TNT or whatever. Now he has whatever inside the NBA.
Still an active player in the NBA. So like, if something had to give, you would think it would be talking football.
Dude, super valid question. I'm glad you asked it, because we candidly had that conversation in beginning August. I said to him, listen, man, we've gotten very close. I would say in the last year or so, we've become very good, close friends. He is a wonderful guy, and much different off camera than what you would see on camera. And obviously what you see on the court. I mean, a much different person. But I had that conversation, and I said, listen, man, like you're in the twilight of your career here. You got, I don't know how much left, but you're certainly still in it as a player. You have your own podcast. You have Inside the NBA. You have a young family. You got a lot going on. And is this something you'd want to continue to do? And not to my surprise, but I was like, wow. He was definitively like, yes, let's see what we can do with it. Because last year was a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
We recorded on Instagram Live. We didn't really have a home. Naturally, with his schedule, the timing's going to move consistently. It's going to be inconsistent.
Yeah.
But he was really into building it out, making it more like legit, if you will. What I mean by that is, like, let's not record an Instagram Live. Let's record on Zoom. Let's get a real team around us that's consistently just with us, and let's see what we can do with it. And I've been really impressed with him. He comes prepared. He has his own thoughts, his own opinions. He's really impressive, and it's a totally fair question, but I can tell you that he was all in on year two.
I saw the clip from yesterday of Draymond calling Dak Prescott a bum. I don't know if you saw it. I was actually on First Take.
No, I posted it. Yeah, I posted it.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but it was a topic on First Take this morning. Even like they played
was it really?
Yeah, they played the clip. Stephen A. Smith, Marcus Spears, Chris Russo, they all reacted to it.
I did not see that. What did they say?
I think they didn't agree with it. Stephen A. Kind of jokingly first said that Draymond should credit Stephen A. for having that thought, because Stephen A. has called Dak Prescott out as much or more than anyone in the media. But they both like that he at least clarified that he did think he was a good quarterback.
Right.
Marcus Spears was a little more critical of it. But I'll say kudos to you for pushing back on the take, and obviously you disagreed with it here. So how has the reaction been to that hot take from Draymond?
That one was, I mean, this is what he does. If it's not Dak Prescott's a bum, it's Josh Allen's not the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one. He's a gold mine with these takes. He is one of these guys, Brandon, that some people really want to be liked. They need to be liked. I think he is very much okay with not being liked and being the villain. It's not like he wakes up every day and says, I want to make people hate me, but he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
And so these are opinions he has and feels. And the reason I knew he was going to react, by the way, this was not a topic that we had talked about before. I think in our rundown, it was something like Cowboys second half predictions or something along that nature. I just was like, I bet if I ask him about Dak, he's going to go off. And I had said, who are the 5 quarterbacks you want to build your franchise around? And he didn't mention Dak. And then I was like, what about Dak?
Yeah.
But that's when he went off. He also went off on Caleb Williams, Josh Allen, on a lot of these guys. But the reaction has been wild in the sense of, like, people text me still like, love him or hate him. They're like, that guy is he's very polarizing.
Yeah.
And I texted DG this morning something like, hell of a show or hell of a job on the Cowboys and all the conversation, and the Dak stuff was wild. What's been your reaction? And he's not phased at all.
Sure.
Because if you look at the comments, it's like Draymond needed Steph.
Yep.
Draymond, Rich coming from Draymond, he just doesn't care. And so it's the same. He's always the same. He's predictable in that he just is very okay with being being the villain.
Yeah. So I mean I couldn't help but think back to Draymond preaching about new media, though, and having these plans of, like, fixing the way the NBA is covered. Does he realize that, like, he's kind of falling into that hot take culture when he says something like this? And let me add, like, Draymond, let him talk about football, give us the takes. I think it's great, but also, how would he have reacted if it was Charles Barkley calling Draymond or, like, Jimmy Butler a bum?
Right. That's a good question. I think he would probably push back.
Yeah.
If he felt that it was unwarranted, but if he had a terrible game or did a really foolish thing, like, for example, we've talked about how, you go back to being up 3-1 in the finals, he gets ejected, he gets suspended, they end up losing. And I think that's one that he'll, in his mind, he really screwed up, and he feels like that's on me. If someone came at him about that, he would say, yeah, that's on me. But he would have to agree with it. If he didn't agree with it, he'd push back hard, just like he did with Dak. Like, he genuinely feels like Dak Prescott is not what did he say? He said he's a good quarterback, but when it comes to, like, really being a winner, he's a bum. Essentially, what he said.
Yeah.
If he feels something, he's gonna go all in.
Last thing as we finish up here, I think it was about a year ago you were on the podcast and you had said Max Kellerman was getting closer to coming out of sports media, his sports media hiatus, and Max has now since reemerged after getting laid off by ESPN a couple years ago. So he's calling boxing matches. He's hosting Inside the Ring. Now he's also launching a new show with Rich Paul for The Ringer. Did you know about these projects, or did you just know that Max was kind of eager to get back in the mix?
So Max and I forged a great friendship. I think I mentioned to you the first time I was on the pod.
Yeah.
Not because we were at ESPN together, but because our daughters became great friends in nursery school or first grade. They one day my daughter comes home and says, "Daddy, I love this girl. She's unbelievably cool. She's so nice." And she has her over to the house, and then I still don't know who it is. And then we go over to Max's house. Well, I go to pick her up. And I realize it's Max. I get into his house. He's actually watching a boxing match, and Ren goes, "Daddy, this is Max, my friend's daddy." And I was like, "Oh wow, I know you." And that was how we met. And then at ESPN, then I was still at ESPN at the time.
Okay.
And he had me on First Take a couple times. I think he had me on his radio show, and then that. But the impetus to our relationship, which became a wonderful friendship, was actually our daughters meeting each other at school.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Yeah. So fast forward to he's laid off. Everything goes down with First Take. He always was like, I'm gonna find another project, but it has to be right. And then I think when we spoke about it, he was in like very early talks for both these, but it took a long, as you know, like this business, it takes a long time.
Right. Bill Simmons had mentioned that he was talking to Max for about a year before everything came to fruition. Did you ever try to recruit him to do a podcast with you? Like if you could get Draymond Green to talk football, like I'm sure you could have convinced Max to do something.
I should. I didn't really think about it. It's probably an error on my behalf because I really think like he is as talented as anyone in the business. He really knows boxing. He loves sports. He's a great hang. We had dinner in like May or June in my neighborhood. We were because he's moved to LA. Yeah. But right before he was moving, we had dinner at a great Italian joint, and we had this whole conversation, and he gave me a really good look into where he was at, what he was thinking. I knew that this was a possibility, but I wasn't sure. But I knew he was on the precipice of some really cool things. And then, obviously, I think it was the Canelo Crawford fight. That was the first big foray back into boxing. And then I knew everything else was materializing too, potentially with the Ringer. So really excited for him, and definitely I know he's going to crush it. But I should get him on the show. Yeah, that's a must.
Jordan, you were great. Have a great rest of the NFL season, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Brandon. I'm going to tell you something I told you before. I love this show. Love this show. Actually, the one I was thinking of that I couldn't quite remember, the Tony Reale one. That's the one that really hit me.
Yeah, Tony was
because
great.
I love Tony. He's always been good to me, and he's a great guy. And that was, I think, in March or April, somewhere along. That one was awesome. And,
Thank you.
As
Tony,
are all your episodes. That one and Eric Collins. Those are two I really loved.
Appreciate it. Yeah, Tony was great. Very very open. It was fun to talk to. All right, that is Jordan Schultz. I'm Brandon Contes. This is the Awful Announcing Podcast. Please rate and subscribe to this podcast. Please also subscribe to Awful Announcing's YouTube page. But regardless of how you consume Awful Announcing and the Awful Announcing Podcast, thanks for listening and be good.
Thanks for listening to the Awful Announcing Podcast. For the latest news spanning the sports media landscape and more, check out awfulannouncing.com and follow us at Awful Announcing.